Cool.
All right, cool. I'm interviewing you, right? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, we can switch it up. We'll do a little back and forth.
Um, okay, we'll see. Well, all right, guys. So honestly, Mason, really great to meet you over the last couple weeks and to hear a bit of your story and a breakdown of some interesting things about you. So, as I mentioned to you before, I'm a founder. Startup is called Scenario. Our mission is to empower people to build a good life, and we're at stage zero. So every once in a while, I'll get requests to do, hey, why don't you have interesting insights? Why don't you do this podcast? And usually I say no, but then because you're cool and entrepreneurial, and I love your cause to help young entrepreneurs, I thought, yeah, got to say yes to this.
Yeah.org. That's how we do it. Awesome. So do you want to tell them a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today? Social capital, personal economic value, things like that.
Yeah. I want to try and cram this, in a less is more style. So in 40 minutes, I think what I can provide substantive value, hopefully substantive value to your audience is, yeah, social capital, what's that? And then related to that is professional economic value. And I want to take a like slightly rigorous approach to this that I've learned along the way, trial and error, and then of course seeing it with other people too. So I think let's break it down. Let's start with social capital. So in this case, it's very easy for someone to think about your connections, your network, right? But then just a little background, like it didn't satisfy me to think about it that way. Growing up as an immigrant family, you come to the US and it's like, wow, there's so many opportunities here, a lot of freedoms. I didn't really realize like the importance of certain connections. And two things in parallel were happening. So I was working as a data scientist. So I got a master's degree many years ago, and then working as a data scientist, and I studied networks. Like I had to formally write algorithms to take a large network. So large meaning different types of large, and different types of computing were available back then. So it's like large could be, okay, a network of 10,000 people or 10,000 or 100,000. Now it gets bigger, 100,000 financial transactions, like someone paying someone or transferring money from one person to another. So I just kept thinking about networks,
Mhm.
formally speaking. And then I thought, hey, wait a second. We have this goal when studying networks to cluster, to break down those networks. And then more importantly, when you look into clusters of networks, why are they clustered together? What is it about this cluster that signals that it's a strong network versus this cluster over here? Okay, so from an algorithmic view, I was thinking, how do I build an algorithm that produces these good clusters of networks? So that's on the like, you know, algorithmic data science side. But then on the human side, I was thinking, wait a second, I think some of these things that I'm doing or learning about can be applied and should be applied to the real world. So now let me give some examples. So it's very easy for someone to say, yeah, social capital is important. And what is that? Right? It's your network, right? The quality of your network. Well, how the heck do you even think about the quality of your network? How about we start there? How should you think about the quality of your network? So back then, just to put some timeline to this, it's 2008. It's the recession. I got a master's degree. I applied to hundreds of jobs. I won't even share how much. And then I was just like, I finally got a job. And then like my financial situation prevented the life I wanted. So I was stressed. I felt stupid. And then I thought, I have to prevent this from happening. So what can I do better? And that's when I really started thinking about my network. That's when I started reading a little bit more and learned about social capital. So that's when I first really was thinking, in addition to building these algorithms now over the years, like, how should I measure social capital? So let's go there. Ready, Wilson?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So I'm gonna try real hard not to get too mathematical, but let's just keep it conceptual. So think about it this way. if you were to think about the five closest people around you, one way to think about the value of anything, this is a valuation exercise or a measurement exercise, is what can you get from them? So it's like, okay, if you were to create a product, could you sell to them? Then it's a question of, are they the right audience? Or another way to think about it is, if you were to, so selling is one thing, but then you get a return, right? You get payment. Another way to think about it is, if you were to pitch an idea to them, would they invest in you? And they might invest in you because they like the idea, or maybe they just trust you. So, so one approach there, when you think about your network and your capital, the capital of your network, therefore social capital, is to think about, what can you get from them in today's market right now, especially with so many people looking for jobs. Like, I was just talking to someone this morning, great experience looking for jobs. And I asked him the question, like, well, who can you who can you talk to that can connect to a potential employer? That's a simpler way to think about it, right? Who can you talk to? So like the five people that you know, who can you talk to, each of them, that can connect you to an employer, regardless of whether or not there's a job. So that's one way to think about it. And okay, so my mind's racing, but like that's one way to think about it. So one way is like, if you have an idea or you've built out a product or a business and you need investment, who can you ask that you have high probability of getting investment from? So it's like, whoa, social capital, that's one way to measure it. Another way is, I need a job. Who can I ask where I have a high probability of them giving me an intro? That's another way to think about social capital. And then, of course, there's other ways to think about it. But I think that was one of the key things that helped me realize, holy cow, I need to grow my social capital, because it's not necessarily a numbers thing. It's not necessarily like the size of your network, the number of people in your network, it's the quality as well. You could have three people, just three people. That's a tiny network, right? But then your social capital with those three people might be fantastic, because they could provide different types of value to you, and maybe you in return can provide different types of value to them. Um, Let me take a moment there. Any questions?
Yeah, so I have a question for you. So you describe it first from your experience saying when you needed a job, right? Who can connect you to an employer? And then you kind of switch it up later, which I think might reflect your actual process in life. You're like, okay, who can invest in me? So you switch from like the employee to the entrepreneur, right? So do you think given the stage in your life, whether you're looking for a job, whether you're looking to start a company, the social capital that you're trying to build has to be dynamic and has to change? Or do you believe that there are certain like people that are just like so like multifaceted, right? That should be there for the long term, like kind of like an investment.
Um, okay, so there's another okay, which concept do I want to throw in here?
Is it dynamic or is it static? Is basically what I'm trying to ask.
It's dynamic. The lazy answer is, it's dynamic, but there should be a better answer than that. And here's what I mean by that. So let's go into science. Let's go into physics a little bit, just not deep into things. I'm not a physicist, but I have an applied math background. When So the lazy answer is, it's dynamic. The better answer is, what's consistent regardless of what happens over time? What's consistent regardless of whatever happens over time? And the technical way to think about it is, what's an invariant? An invariant, something that doesn't really vary. So yeah, it's dynamic, but the better thing to do, as you might imagine, is, even if you're at a point in life where, dude, you're just looking for a job. You're like, and I was at a point where I didn't want to be a startup founder. Startup is crazy. Startup is not a small business. It's crazy. So I was at a point where I remember thinking, I don't want to be a founder. Maybe I'll do a side business, a small business for sure, but I just want to find a job. So that's my goal. So I was thinking about my social capital and growing it with that goal in mind, right?
Yeah.
However, what I learned later, unfortunately, is, even during that time, I would have glimpses of employers, of my bosses, asking me about what I'm interested in, what I'm passionate in. And then I learned later that some of them were investors. So if I could do things all over again, I should not have just had one goal as I was building my social capital. I should have had at least, in this case, two goals, meaning, hey, I'm going to get to know someone, build relationships with them, with partly the goal that I don't have to suffer to look for a job ever again. But then I should also just have in the back of my mind as part of a diversified strategy that, hey, I should learn about what like business expertise they have. And if it just so happens that I might do a business, then I can call on them.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So, okay, just to go full circle, the invariant here is that um, usually people who can be either an employer can also be an investor. They themselves are developing those interests and expertise over time. They might not communicate that to you, but just because they don't communicate that to you and you don't know, doesn't mean that you should also, you know, you yourself should have that strategy of having those two goals in mind. So the
Mhm.
invariant here is, hey, keep those goals in mind consistently over time, not necessarily needing to shift to one or the other. Like operate with like diversified strategy really.
So is it just about finding people who are in higher positions than you who can advance your goals?
No, because sometimes those people who are in higher positions got lucky. So it's like, let me put it, let me think. Let me put it in the frame that I think a lot of young entrepreneurs are in, which is this goes to another algorithmic concept, which I'll touch on later. So, like, the world is moving fast right now, and young entrepreneurs are the best ones usually to learn freaking quickly of what's up, right? So, if you were to talk to someone who's had in their time, meaning years ago, rose up in rank and let's say they started a business and they're a seasoned entrepreneur, should you necessarily listen to them and or listen to them or try to gain value from them? And unfortunately, the it's a lazy answer, and the answer is it depends. But most likely, because the pace at which technology and then like even business models are changing right now, like 2 years ago and then here in 2024, then to me, like from my learnings, it's look to people who are in the, and this goes to another concept now, look to people who are in the exploration phase. They're exploring businesses and technology so fast that folks who are older and more seasoned in higher positions or whatever, those older insights might not be applicable to today, right? So let's use a crazy stupid example. And whoever's listening to this might be like not even born yet, but like Blockbuster, you go to a DVD store, a DVD, right? Blockbuster. I don't know if you're. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll just talk about it. So, okay. Okay, it's Saturday night. Maybe you're with your family or friends. You want to watch a movie. Maybe two movies. Okay, so let's go. Let's go driving now to the store. Spend some time walking around. 30 minutes have passed now. Just walking around, maybe pick up two or three DVDs to rent. Then you go home. 45 minutes have passed now. Today, or like, circa 2015, Netflix, there is no 45 minutes that you have to go through. The search cost just zoop, right? Is so fast. So if you were to talk to people during that era who, yeah, have rose in their prominence in business or whatever, those insights are old, not applicable to the moment that Netflix started picking up like crazy and invested millions of dollars trying to figure out how to improve their reco engine, their recommendation algorithm. So and there were a lot of young people back then who were exploring these recommendation algorithms, not incumbents. So something similar is happening today with things like AI tools. Who's using it? It's like a lot of young people are using it. A lot of young innovators are. So it's like I would listen to them.
The people who are doing the most research, the people who are trying things and failing.
Trying, building, the research side too. Yeah.
Hmm, interesting.
Makes
So
sense, right?
yeah. So how do you go about finding these people and building those relationships, especially as a student?
Um, okay, I'm gonna answer that a little bit differently. Okay, there's yeah. Let me answer it this way first. And this applies, so this approach applies to basically everything in life. So there's the what's called the explore exploit algorithm. Simple concept. Let's say I'm going to talk about restaurants, partly because I'm hungry, but then I'm going to go back to your question. Okay.
Okay.
If you go to a new city and there's 50 restaurants, oh my gosh, you could go to a new restaurant every day. Which should you go to? Should you do all 50? That sounds tiring. They might be spread out, right? And maybe you want to go just finally find a restaurant where you're like, oh yeah, that's my favorite. There's 50. So you have to explore a few and then try it out. And then you'll decide, oh yeah, these are my top two favorite. And you know what? The rest, I don't want to bother. Maybe next time. So you did a lot of exploration first. Try some more, try some more. Now you've tried five. Now you tried 10. Now you tried 15. And then at the 20th restaurant, that's a lot of trying. At the 20th restaurant, you're like, okay, yeah, so you know what? Straight up, this restaurant, my favorite so far. I'm so good with it. I don't care about the rest. So
Mhm.
explore 20 and then exploit it. So the keyword here, exploit, now it has a negative connotation, but in a computer science space or algorithm space, it's like, hey, you take advantage.
Mhm.
So now you just there's people like that who just take advantage and do the same thing, wear the same thing, go to the same restaurants. So that's exploitation. You explore, you exploit. For as you can imagine, for a lot of young people, there's a lot of exploration. But going back to your question now of how do you build a network, where should you go? Okay, clearly you need to do some exploration. And then once you explore different spaces, then you exploit.
Mhm.
So it's like breadth and then depth, right?
Mhm.
So I know I'm coming at this question from a conceptual point of view, but that's because partly because how I'm wired, but also because I wish I thought of it this way back in the day. So now let me give a real example. Uh, so in my case, let's use my case, or maybe similar to yours too. Let's say I want to find, okay, I want to grow my network, I want to grow my social capital, and then of course, network or social capital really mean doesn't. It's not a numbers game. Like you need to grow your network to thousands of people. It's more a question of quality. So for me, I want to find great founders of businesses. Okay. So that's one area. So where do I go to find that? And then I'll bring it down to the student because the qualifier said, hey, what if you're a student? Okay. The other area is so that's business people. Then the other area is, let's say, investors. I want to find investors that align with me. All right. The advantage that a student has is that they're a damn student. If you think about it this way, if an executive at Qualcomm, at Netflix, whatever, gets approached by me, someone who's a seasoned professional, like, hey, I want to have some time with you. Let's do coffee. They might be like, nah, no, I see you're a startup founder. What do you want? You're trying to sell me something? Trying to sell me some B2B SaaS, which is so common, right? Versus a student, like you have to be a jerk. You have to be a supreme jerk to reject a student. So if you're a student right now, seriously take advantage of this time because you're a student, you're at the exploration phase. People know that.
Mhm.
And so the doors are easier for you to open. Now, if I were you guys, like if I were to pick like let's say business leaders versus getting a job, right? So there's two distinct categories of people you want to build connections with. So on the business leader side, it usually takes, and this goes back to explore and exploit, is can you find one person, one or two, but it starts with one. Can you find one person who um like resonates with you being a student who wants to learn? So someone that what that usually means is someone who's willing to give you feedback and advice, even when you're not asking. So that person could be a senior student. So a student also, but then someone who's a little more senior. Let's say a student also, but someone who's like a student that started a business or something. And then, or another way is you like, I've known some students do this, and it might be a little weird for some people, which is you cold DM. Like even if you're a student, you might think, oh, I don't have any reason to be on LinkedIn. Well, that's where a lot of pros are. So get your butt on LinkedIn and, write out something decent. And then, of course, it's like, okay, you're a student, then here you are. Hey, I'd like to do an informational interview with you. You seem really cool because of XYZ. I'm a student of entrepreneurship. I'm learning. If you can find that one, and it doesn't take a lot, especially as a student, that pitch, that cold DM right there to a seasoned professional, if the response is if they freaking like if they respond to you, boom, that's like awesome. Next, if they respond with something like, "Yeah, I'm down for that. Let's do a call or something." That's a great sign already. So it just really takes one person, and then when you meet that one person, always ask, "Who else do you know that could guide me?" Always ask. So that's something I learned, unfortunately, way too later is that person might not be the right person, whoever that one person is, right? Who's paying you attention. But don't forget to ask, hey, who do you know that could guide me?
Hmm. Yeah, and I could just add on to that because I've kind of been in the exploration phase probably for the past 4 years, right? So there's like three main categories I would break it into when you're talking about trying 20 different restaurants, right? Trying 20 different ways to find those kind of groups, right? The first one, which is widely available to people my age especially, is online groups. So especially when you see like on social media, there's a lot of like clickbait that goes on. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this stuff, right? But
Yeah.
young people like flashing stuff on whether it's like it's short form content, right? And they're like, hey, join my community, right? We'll teach you how to do this. That can be very, very attractive because it seems quick, like the snap of a finger. And obviously, I've fallen into those. I've tried to experiment with those. For me personally, they never worked. That's because I was actually talking about this earlier today with one of my friends, is that for me, that online connection is not fulfilling enough. For me, I have to be in person. And I can give you an example. I've
Hmm.
tried two different small things. One thing I was trying to help like early stage founders with QSBS tax law, which is like
Hmm.
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And the process of building that was cold call, cold call, cold call, cold email. I actually ended up getting a client who would pay me like $800 just for one paper. But the entire process of going through that was extremely discouraging. I didn't even want to continue doing it anymore. Now, in contrast, another small business I was doing was flipping parking passes, where I would
Hmm.
knock door to door in Santa Monica and talk to people in my community, and I would, sell them on it. That for me, I could get rejected and actually enjoy the process. I could do it all day, which I actually
Yeah.
did. I did it for weeks on end, and I got my friends involved. And for me, it was that personal connection that allowed me, that fueled me to continue going. And that's what personally worked for me. The thing is, finding the in-person groups, especially my age, is really difficult. That's the entire reason why YA was started, because I tried to find a business group at high school, and there wasn't one at all, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So having to build my own is the second option. So you can either join another group or you can build your own and position yourself as a leader and position yourself to really build a community of your own where you do attract people like yourself. And I think the benefit for that is that you don't have to conform to any theme of a group. You could make it your own. People come to you because you want a combination of entrepreneurship and trying to find a
Hmm.
job, right? Instead of
Yeah.
having to conform into a just job finding or a just entrepreneurial community, right?
Hmm.
And then the third one is finding groups outside of your community where you actually don't know anybody. And that was probably the scariest one. Like, you see much like VC events on Luma, right? And I
Yeah.
just recently started going to those. It took me a
Hmm.
long time to actually like learn about that. But that has been the highest ROI. That's actually the reason why I met you, because I went to a Loom event, the LMU showcase. I met Caden, and then Caden introduced me to Lance, and then we did the whole trip, right?
Yeah.
And what you said about being a student is that when you're the youngest one in the room, which I always am at these events, it does play to your advantage. And it's probably the like most important asset that I have in there, right? More than my experience, more than, what I've built so far. The fact that I am the youngest one and have that growth mindset, looking to learn is extremely valuable. So that's kind of like what I recommend to, anybody who's asking me, hey, how do I, connect with these people? Just go somewhere where you're the youngest in the room.
Yeah. Brilliant. You said a few things where I'm like, okay, you've been around. You've tested so the fact that I think you said position 3 times, that signals probably a good topic to cover. Um, self-branding or
Mm-hmm.
your personal brand, but then how you position. So I'm curious to hear what you think about this. I talk about this now with my circle of people quite a bit. Wait, before we go there, the whole clickbait thing, like on social and stuff. Oh man, like I've almost fallen. No, 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 not almost. I have fallen to that. I almost fell into it again a couple of months ago, and I'm like, no, 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 I'm not falling for this anymore. So, I was in that exploration phase, didn't know
Mm-hmm.
any better, and then that's what I learned. Like, oh man, so if I were in school again, if I were a student again, I would definitely go where are the pros? And then if someone's well-intentioned, well-intended, like
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to want to charge a student.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to be a raging jerk to want to do that, whether it's social media or not. So that's why it's like, hey, if you go to where people pros hang out, which is oftentimes LinkedIn or Twitter or X, whatever. But usually it's at LinkedIn. Usually, reduces the risk.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What do you think before we
Yeah,
shift?
I completely agree. I think you could even like get a job at a country club or something. Just hang out where the pros are, you know? For me,
Yeah.
like the LinkedIn thing, I think
Hmm.
LinkedIn took like before I actually started get the first real value I got from LinkedIn was when I got offered like a guest speaker position at like a youth conference. That took me like 3 years of building on LinkedIn. So it really is delayed. It's not my favorite to be honest.
Wow. Okay.
And
Okay.
and especially because it's online, like I just said, I prefer the in person. So
Mm.
I would much prefer just getting a job at a country club or something. Like I got a job, I was just doing an internship for like a tech Web3 company, which is kind
Hmm.
of circle that I was trying to get into, right?
Hmm.
Just getting in those circles is just really important, And especially for students who want to like go into certain industries, interning at a startup is great because you actually get to be one-on-one with the founder. There's no other company structure where you don't have to go
Yeah.
these loops, the corporate bureaucracy, things like that. It's you right below the founder, and you get to learn directly from that person. And that could become the number one mentor that you were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
That needs to propel you and connect you.
That's a great tactic. So I think it's a good time now. Let's shift it to personal brand. And
Mhm.
really, this goes back to what is your unique professional value? I'll repeat that: unique professional value. So you know, it's not what your mom tells you, like, oh, you're so special, you're so unique. No, no, no. Let's be professional value, but unique. So why those 3 words? Okay, so let's break that down. I personally, I too prefer in person, and that is probably it probably makes you stand out.
Mhm.
Probably makes any one of you stand out. Why? Because so much of the world right now is online. And so it is outstanding, like literally stand out, because you're standing there
Mhm.
at in person at an event, looking at someone in the eye and talking. Now, here's the part I think that a lot of people still screw up, even for seasoned professionals, which is in a world where attention is low, whether it's online or in person, can you describe yourself, who you are, in seconds, whether you're looking for a job or not? So it's like you get in the same room, whether it's a country club, tennis court, a cafe, an event, you're there, right? You're in the same room, you're in the same space. So now the question is, what do you say? So this is probably one of the hard things, even for seasoned pros, is what is your unique professional value? In seconds, can you describe that? Why is this so important? Mason, imagine you're like, you see 20 students or like just 20 people, right? 20. They all look a little different. 20 people. And if I were to ask that, let's make it even better 20 software engineers. 20 software engineers. Okay, they're mostly going to be dudes, hopefully some women in there, right? 20. If I were to ask them, hey, what are you? Hey, what are you? Hey, why are you awesome? Hey, hey, hey. Most likely their answers are going to be pretty much the same. And that's sad because if you are an employer, now imagine you're an employer, right?
Mhm.
Or an investor, an employer, or someone looking for a business partner. You're asking everyone, but then you're like, everyone's saying pretty much the same thing. Nothing stands out. That's the sad part. So that's just 20 people. But when you imagine you scale it up online you're dealing with thousands. You have thousands of competitors, even in multiple venues in person, hundreds of competitors, hundreds of people like you. So it's more important than ever, I think, to be able to say, who the heck are you in a few seconds in a unique way? So an example would be, okay, you're a software engineer who specializes in gaming. Okay, that's something interesting. As opposed to someone just saying, oh, I'm a dev. Uh, And, or, like I'm a software engineer who specializes in gaming for early stage startups, 0 to 1. Like, oh, okay, now I can position you. So that's why I was listening. I like, it's interesting use of the word position. Now I can position you and you're unique. So that's the unique part and unique professional value. What kind of professional are you? Oh, you're a software engineer. So unique because you have experience in gaming going from 0 to 1, helping founders go from 0 to 1, and the profession part, software engineer. And then the value part could be usually an accomplishment. Like, oh yeah, we crushed it, built an app 0 to 1 in 4 months. So like, holy cow, that sounds amazing. That sounds like you're a valuable person. You could do that in a short amount of time. Unique professional value. So this is something that time and time again I see if I ask someone whether they're looking for a job or they're an entrepreneur, even if they're seasoned, they usually kind of like are weak in that pitch.
Mhm.
What do you think? Have you seen this? What do you think?
I definitely agree with you. It kind of translates to really anywhere you go. If you're in a room full of like devs, dev. But even when you're in a room of like really high caliber people, like let's say you're at a VC event, right? What do you do? Okay, VC. Oh, I'm a tech founder, right? It's all about making yourself stand out and being like the only person in your distinct category. And you can really make it as like small and defined as you want. I think where a lot of people struggle is so for me, I was able to position myself as like, hey, I run a financial education company for teens, right? Instant, that's my sell. But I didn't have that a couple years back, right? And I think that's where a lot of other people struggle, especially young people, is that they don't have that selling point because they're just figuring it out, which is totally okay.
Yeah.
So, do you have any tips on how to sell yourself when you're still trying to figure it out, when you're still trying to figure out your unique proposition?
Um, say what your okay, so you're still in that so still in that exploration phase. Most likely, if you're even thinking about that question, most likely you've had some success. You've worked on something, built something, worked on a project, sold something. So keep like an inventory of what it is that you have done that demonstrates your skill or talent.
Mhm.
So, it's not zero. Like there's no one who's like, I'm not good at anything. No, you are good at something. So keeping it, number one is keep an inventory, like daily, top of mind. What's great about you? What have you done? What's your talent? Skill, talent. So keep an inventory. So let's say, because it's not zero. So you have that in mind. Now, let's say because you're a student, you're in that exploration phase. So what you can do is let's say you don't have that a great inventory of accomplishments, right? But you have it. So that's a secondary thing. The primary thing, what you can do is pitch what you are like really crazy passionate about, or just passionate or interested. Pitch that first, then say your accomplishments. So an example, if we go back to the software engineer thing, it could be like, oh, I'm a software engineer for early stage, built 0 to 1, I'm in gaming, and man, I've built apps in 4 months. Boom. Whoa, that's unique. So for someone who I imagine would be a student, it's like, God, what's a good one? Let's do sneakers since someone told me he's flipped sneakers. So like, okay, wow, crazy talent. That's an accomplishment. But what's something this person, I'll make something up now, not you, but like what's something that they're really interested in? Pick whatever that topic is. Let's say it's climate change. No. Let's say it's shoes. Let's stick to shoes. Let's say like 100% sustainable shoes. Oh, I've I'm really interested in learning more about manufacturing sustainable shoes. By the way, I've sold or flipped shoes and made a few thousand off of it. So that way you're really interested in this, but look, I've done something before. So interest, accomplishment, interest, talent, interest, skill.
I think that's really good. Another thing, and I was talking with Sam about this, Sam Freeman. He actually gave some really good advice on it. Is just like leveraging like the assets that you have already, meaning the people that you know already. So he told me this story about he was a promoter for a couple clubs, right? And he would get obviously these high ticket clients who want to get these like $1,000 tables, right? And then every time they would ask him like, "What do you do?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a promoter. If you need this and that." And then one day he decided to switch it up and say, "Hey, I run a luxury services company for high net worth individuals." And the moment he started saying that, people started asking him, "Oh, I'm actually looking for a yacht rental next week. I'm in LA for a couple of weeks. Can you help me up? Oh, I need a limo. I'm going to another club tomorrow night, right? Can you hook me up?" And then he started getting these requests and these requests and these requests, even though it didn't have the facilities on the back end, right? But
Hmm.
it's the demand that filled it first, and then he began supplying it. And then, hey, what do you do? Yeah, I run a company, luxury services for high net worth individuals, right? Every single time it continues to expand and expand and expand. So being able to like even just like fake it till you make it, right? And say you're doing the thing because if there's demand for it and you're an ambitious person, you can fulfill that demand every time, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I just thought
That's good.
that was a good little bit.
That
But
is good. Yeah.
yeah. So you also mentioned like human algorithm, right? Do you want to take a couple minutes to just
So
define what that is and tell us about it?
yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna pull in some of the things we talked about so far. So the explore exploit method. So there's a lot of studies to this. So in math or computer science, it's called the optimal stopping problem. And we could think about it like restaurants. Like, oh, so many freaking restaurants in the city. Which I wonder which one I'm gonna like. Well, I'm gonna have to explore some, and then eventually maybe I should stop because I can't explore. I mean, if I want to, it might take a lot of time. Explore, explore, explore forever. Same thing can be applied to dating. And there's like classic problems you can look online where the explore exploit method or explore exploit approach is used. And by the way, if you were to look it up, if you Google it, uh, another name for it is multi-armed bandit problem application to gambling and casinos. But anyway, let's go back to the
Multi-arm banded.
yeah, multi-armed bandit, bandit.
Okay.
If we think about explore exploit, um, what in any of these things, like in events you go to, you can imagine like there's a lot of events. How many of each type of event should I explore before I get an idea of which ones I should exploit, which ones I should take advantage of, which ones are useful to me? So in the explore exploit approach, it's always good to be mindful of how do I value the things that I'm exploring and then deciding which ones to exploit. So just the fact of like operating, if you're human OS, right, is to think about that every once in a while, daily. you're probably going to save yourself some time and effort in whatever it is that you're exploring, whether it's courses, so many courses out there, whether it's people to hang out with, events to go to. If you always keep in mind that, okay, I should probably explore a bit and then exploit, it'll save you some time and effort. To put a number to this, like when it comes to I'll use the dating example, the marriage example, there's what's called the 37% rule. Like you should, for restaurants or for dating, whatever, you should, if there's 100 options or 100 people, you should explore or like go on dates with 37 people first. And then that's when you've amassed some experience and some knowledge about what you value. And then afterwards, you should make a big decision, after a while. So that's one application. Here's another example of this human algorithm thing. We actually talked about it just as an example, which is this unique professional value. Who are you? What makes you unique? So, um, uh, so the idea here is what what's a brief summary of you that captures you and describes most of of who you are professionally. So it's like, let me give an example. So someone could be an accountant. Oh, but guess what? They're accountant and a DJ on the weekend. Oh, shoot, I didn't know. Oh, guess what? That's not all of it. They're accountant, a DJ, and a painter. Oh, I didn't know. Is there anything else? No, that's pretty much it. So what did I do there? I described the main dimensions that describe someone. One dimension was not enough. An accountant. Oh, really? That's it? Okay, bye. Accountant who's a DJ. Whoa, really? Is there any more? Accountant who's a DJ and a painter. So what's happening there is this concept of what's the most relevant things about someone in the least number of words. Most relevant dimensions about someone in the least number of dimensions. Most relevant, but least dimensions. This thing, I'm going to repeat again. Most relevant to describe something in the least number of dimensions. This concept, actually in math, principal components analysis. It's like, it explains, there's psychology to this, but basically it's like, that's why we want to know, and ChatGPT does this so well, right? Hey, can you just give me the TLDR of this article? I don't want to read the whole thing. Or like Beowulf TLDR. Oh, it's going to highlight the most relevant things that hopefully capture most of it in the least number of dimensions, or least number of topics, least number of words. So that right there, it applies to pitching too. So if you're like, hey, what kind of dev are you? Oh, you're just a dev. Nothing else? Okay, all right, bye. Versus, oh, you're just an accountant. Again, you're an accountant. Oh, I'm an accountant, a DJ on the weekends, and I'm a painter. Like, whoa, that captures quite a bit of you in the least number of dimensions. That probably is another really good, like, as part of this human algorithm way thing, like to algorithmically think, um, like how should you explain something to someone, whether it's about you yourself as a personal brand or a subject. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So as we kind of wrap up this podcast interview, how about we put a real world example of that? So can you give a quick TLDR of the company that you're building and how might be helpful to students who want to take charge of their financial careers?
Wow, you're putting me on the spot. I like it.
Elevator pitch, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. I'll frame it this way. So we are a financial technology startup that empowers people to build a good lifestyle, where lifestyle means hanging out, going to concerts, restaurants, also maybe vacations, and then of course bigger things like maybe buying a car, getting a home, or renting if that's your thing, having a pet. Oh, there's some cost to that. Raising kids, if that's something you're curious about. So we focus on lifestyle. We want to empower people to explore and build a good life.
And how can people check out what you're building and go ahead and put the calculator to their own lives?
Wow, Mason. So thanks for that. It's the website is scenario.life, Life. We're at the prototype stage, um, having early conversations with potential banking partners as well as early users and investors.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I'm gonna drop a link to that in the description. We'll put it on the socials, send it out to
Cool.
everybody. So yeah, awesome. Ihsan, thank you so much. This has been really, really cool. I think really interesting stuff, social capital. I'm gonna keep it in mind as I continue my exploration phase. Hopefully we'll be in the exploitation soon. But
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's right. Just dropped it right there. Cool.
all right, man.
All right.